Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and welcome to the Candidate Experience Podcast, where we focus on the job candidate journey from apply to onboard and the space in between. Let's get started. You care about the candidate experience, but have you ever wondered exactly how to bring your company to that next level and offer a world-class experience to your candidates? It's not easy. Fortunately, Candidate.fyi can help. Their solution guides candidates through your hiring journey, enhancing transparency and communication at every touch point. You'll also gain valuable insights on what's working and what's not with your hiring process. Best of all, it integrates directly with your ATS. Head on over to Candidate.fyi and see how to transform your company's candidate experience today. Welcome to the Old School Billboard episode, where Nadia Danford, Senior Director of People at Policy Genius, is my special guest. Listen to the insights she shares on how to enhance the candidate experience and improve your company's employer brand. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please subscribe and do share with others. Want to comment, discuss, provide feedback? You can do so by sending me a note via LinkedIn or via the contact form on our site, www.thecx.xyz. I thank you for listening, and here's my interview. For my listeners, can you give like the 1 minute overview of your company and what you do for the company?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Policy Genius is an online insurance marketplace. We've been around since 2014, and our mission has been to help people get the financial protection they need and feel good about it, right? So we make it easy for people to understand their options, compare quotes, buy insurance all in one place. And if you're looking for sort of a good way to visualize what we do, think about what Kayak does for travel bookings.
Mm-hmm.
But purchasing insurance is way more complex than booking a flight, right? So a little bit more complicated. We're not an insurance company. We don't underwrite risk. We aren't a lead generator. We don't sell your data. Our goal is basically to offer the content and the tools that our customers need to make informed decisions, and then provide a full service marketplace to help you actually get it right when you do go to purchase. So I've been leading the recruiting function here at PG since January 2018. And we've built a pretty sophisticated, and I think I would call a strategic in-house recruiting team to support our massive growth over the last couple of years.
Sure. How did you get into this whole recruiting business?
Oh man, it's a funny story, and I'm sure everybody says that.
Yep, they always do, and that's why I asked that question.
I think everyone falls into recruiting on accident. Mine is actually probably a little unique in some ways. So one sort of weird fun fact about me: I studied organic chemistry in college. I spent most of my time in a lab. I hate talking to people. I would much rather not talk to people. And when I decided I didn't want to go right back to school right after graduation, I was one of those seniors that just I didn't have a job. I was midway through the spring semester. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was interviewing for basically everything. And my older brother was founding a tech startup at the time. He introduced me to one of his investors who just happened to be starting an executive search firm that was focused on sort of building healthcare startups. So I'm pretty sure they pitched it to me as a VC firm. I got really excited about building early stage companies, and I had no idea I'd have to spend my life talking to strangers until I got there and realized I was a recruiter. So the kicker in my story, I found out sort of after the fact that my future boss was offering an iPad as a referral bonus. And this was back when iPads were big news.
Right.
So my brother basically sold me for an iPad. But I got a career out of it, right? So there's that.
That's That's funny. Great story, and that's why I asked the question, because I think we all come to this in different paths and stuff. So I think I at least I find it interesting. So thanks for sharing that.
Totally.
Can you we're knee deep into this global pandemic and stuff, but I know that presents lots of challenges in and of itself. But like when you look at like your recruiting team and a challenge, and it can be pandemic related or not, can you like talk about a challenge that Policy Genius has experienced with some aspect of the candidate experience and sort of what you did about it?
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, this obviously, candidate experience is such a critical component of
Yep.
any recruiting strategy. And PG, what's interesting is we actually measure candidate experience the same way that we measure our customer NPS. We report out on it to our leadership team. We report out on it to the board. So it's something that we take really seriously. I think this example will probably be interesting, even though it is sort of pre-pandemic. We also have done a lot post-pandemic, but
Sure.
we have a really structured interview process at PG,
Mm-hmm.
which is something we implemented more for us, right, to gather better, balanced, unbiased assessment. Although it does have great benefits for our candidates too, since obviously they're exposed to more stakeholders, they get to exposed to a variety of interview approaches. Hopefully, they don't have to have the same conversation over and over and over again, which can be really boring. But one of the challenges when you have a sort of rigorous process like that, that we often faced, was that it's hard. It's hard to know what to expect, right? And it can be sometimes hard to even just justify to our candidates, like why do we need these different meetings and assessments? And this was particularly pronounced when it came to structured business cases, which is a tool that we use to test problem solving. One of our core values here at PG is working the problem, and it's something we test often with on-site sort of business cases, which can be really stressful or intimidating if you've never done one before. And it's not our intent to stress out our candidates, but it is our intent to make sure that we're doing a full evaluation. So to sort of address that, we built a really high touch interview process. We share
Mm-hmm.
detailed schedules way in advance. We share prep materials way in advance, FAQs about the cases, sprinkled with quirky gifts and links to helpful reading material, right? So we're trying to sort of build that relationship early and share a lot of insight to sort of make sure our candidates come in understanding our interview philosophy and our approach, which goes a long way to sort of putting them at ease why we're doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We even, when someone comes on site, now obviously we're not doing on-site interviews right now, but we have beautiful packets for our candidates, beautifully branded, very detailed schedules that even have contact info for each interviewer in case people want to send follow-up thank you notes, which by the way aren't required, but things like that really feel personal and feel like we're doing our best to make sure that our candidates are coming in prepared in a way that's fair, right? We don't like tell them the answers, but
Right.
I think it's gone a long way to make our candidates feel more comfortable just coming in and talking to us. And even when people don't get hired, we get great feedback of, at least I felt like I was really fully evaluated and I understood why. So that's one of the things that we've done a lot with.
Interesting stuff. So it's not an open book test, but you are giving some of the questions or at least the process ahead of time, so folks feel like they're prepared.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Do you have anything new planned for 2020 or planning to do to sort of improve candidate experience? I know and expected what happened in March, April, and now in May. Anyways, can you talk about something new that you guys were trying to do, or maybe you can't do till next year, or what have you?
Yeah, totally. Maybe this is a good time to talk about what we did with respect to the pandemic stuff, only because
Yep.
we actually were kind of planning some of this. We didn't predict any of that, but
Right.
one thing we haven't touched on is that we recently opened our second headquarters in Durham,
Yep.
and so we're a New York-based company. We are used to being very face to face with all of our employees, with all of our candidates. And we had to start getting ready to do a little bit more remote interviewing. So we actually were already laying some of the groundwork for this before we then very suddenly we
Right.
had to be doing this for everything. So that was a sort of sudden shift. But we had already been thinking about, we put together really detailed guidelines for our internal, for our interviewers to just understand how to tackle remote interviewing, how to make decisions based on remote interviewing. And we did a lot of troubleshooting with them. And then we also realized, when you move to Zoom, especially when it's all Zoom, you have to sort of implement additional human touches throughout those processes, because even if it was already high touch, we're trying to make it feel personal, even if we just never get a chance to meet in person, right? So a couple of examples of what we've done or been doing or are hoping to do, our coordinators realized it was really awkward to ask a candidate to jump into a Zoom interview with no intro or preface, the way that you wouldn't walk into an office and immediately start interviewing with the first person you
Right.
see. You meet a receptionist, or you sit down in the waiting area and you chat up to the person next to you. So our Cs have offered to basically just jump into the Zoom a few minutes early with each candidate to test the sound, the video, just generally say hello, make it a little
Right.
bit more comfortable. On the internal side, and this is, I think, directly impacting candidate experience, even if it isn't visible to our candidates, is we actually create Slack channels
Hmm.
for each candidate who comes in, with our interviewers and the schedule and all the links to all the interview plan and all that stuff, just so that we can keep sort of track of the schedule and let each other know when we're running over or when we're ready, right? So that has helped us avoid the dreaded Zoom bombing when the next interviewer hops in and before the meeting is wrapped up. So we've kind of iterated on that process a few times to just make sure that we look really buttoned up to our candidates and they trust that we've got that on lock and have a really smooth experience. And then one thing that we, I think, is a function of the pandemic. So this is less just remote interviewing, but we've been really trying to offer more flexibility to our candidates in scheduling, and breaking up longer interview loops over multiple
Hmm.
days. It's actually easier to do that for us now that we're all remote, but it's also easier, I think, for our candidates, since we know that this is a weird time. We're in a new normal, and
Yep.
um, sometimes that makes it harder to get away for longer chunks of time. Maybe someone's parenting, like kind of dealing with childcare, or just their work situation is different. So we're trying to be even more flexible than I would say we already were pretty flexible, but trying to kind of accommodate even further than we might have, pre this kind of crazy time.
Yeah. It sounds great. I love the Slack channel, so all your internal people are on the same page and communicating and stuff. And that candidates don't see that, but they do see. They would see if you're late or someone had a reschedule, like those things. They do see those things. So, have you done anything to sort of quantify or survey the experience that candidates have at all? I don't know if you've done any sort of,
Yeah.
polling and sort of what that looks like.
Yeah. So our primary input for measuring candidate experience is actually the kind of out of the box candidate experience survey that Greenhouse offers. So we use Greenhouse
Mhm.
as our applicant tracking system, and they have a great survey that we can sort of program to go out anytime a candidate is rejected or hired. So basically leaves the process. We typically, the way we have it set up, we only do the survey if someone comes on site, because if someone does a phone call, it's just a phone screen. It might be a bit much to ask them to do a survey.
Right.
Um, but it's a great survey just because it's pretty blanket. It's Greenhouse builds it as like a third party, so it doesn't feel like it's coming from us. You are more anonymous. We don't have access to who you are, but it helps in the sense that we also get benchmarks from Greenhouse on how their other clients do with the same data. So there are drawbacks to not being able to sort of customize the questions, and the data set can sometimes be lacking if we're not getting the comments that we want or something like that. But we have a really steady baseline because we've been actually using this survey for the last 3 years. So I don't really want to change it now. It's nice to have data that goes
Right.
back quite a while. And we look at that on a weekly basis. We check out the comments. We make sure that we're digging in on, a department level and making sure that, we're following up with people. And then there are other ways we get a lot of feedback anecdotally from candidates, whether that's, when we're on the phone, giving them feedback or something like that, or even just over Glassdoor, which is probably not my favorite way to get feedback if it's going to
Right.
be constructive, but we'd rather help resolve that directly. But at the same time, it's a valid source of information, and we do really try to implement changes when we see really sort of actionable feedback, even if it comes through Glassdoor.
Gotcha. Do you have like one tip for listeners to, you probably actually have more but we're trying to keep this to 20 minutes, but, do you have one tip for others, one thing a company could do to help, improve their
Yeah,
company, candidate experience?
totally. And I'll try to keep it simple. You're right. I probably could talk about this for hours. I think the easiest way to think about candidate experience that we use is just to remember to be human, right? Focus on the fundamentals. Um, Remember to think on behalf of your candidates, and so one of our values at PG is to live by the golden rule. We really seek to apply that kind of empathy in the
Hmm.
interview process, and that means like the easiest way to apply that is just to remember what it felt like when you were interviewing, right? Treat every interview like it's the most important meeting that you're going to have that day, because even if you're like me, I might have 5 interviews in a day, and it's really tiring. But for that one candidate on the other end of the line, this is a big deal, and it's a really important, very short opportunity and window to kind of show us who they are. So that's a big component of it, is just remember that, what it felt like. They're stressed out already. Don't stress them out further. That's what I tell my interview teams. And the other thing, and this is kind of goes along with that, but just to focus on quality in your process, right? You can offer swag. You can check out your careers page with gorgeous photos of your office. You can even be like super transparent with your philosophy the way that we are. But if the people that your candidates interact with throughout the process are not excited to be there, or they're not trained well in how to deliver an interview, or if your interview plan isn't thoughtfully designed and ends up being repetitive or wasteful or needlessly hard, right? The experience is going to be poor. So what I tell my team, candidates they're just like you. They just want to be evaluated fairly. Our candidates want to be followed up with. They
Yeah,
want clarity and transparency and honesty and authenticity, and they want to be treated with respect. So if you do those things, people will, I hope, will enjoy working with you.
agreed. Totally agree. Um, so I'm biased on this, of course, but I totally agree that opening up a second headquarters in Durham, North Carolina, was a really good choice. I live in Durham, for listeners here, but I think one of the ways I learned about your company is you had a billboard, and it was like I forget exactly what it said, but it was recruitment advertising, and it was really old school. It's like you don't see many billboards for now hiring. I thought that was great. I don't think it's still up. Is it still up? I don't go
I
out
don't
much these days because of current circumstances. But is it still up?
I don't think it is. It was earlier this year, and it was sort of a crazy brainchild moment that we had when we were joking about, like, we spend so much money on customer advertising. Why
Right.
not, try to do the same when it comes to recruiting, if it's so important for our business? And I literally made a joke, I think, in a meeting, that was like, could we just have a billboard by the Waffle House that says, "Hey, we're here, we're hiring," just to sort of get the word out that we were coming. And it's not what it said. I think it said, join Durham's fastest growing startup, and it was up for a couple of months. But it's been crazy. We still hear about it when candidates are applying, or we're talking to candidates. Oh yeah, I saw you guys. I looked you up on a billboard, or after seeing a billboard. So yeah, it was funny. I think it actually had a surprisingly huge impact. I don't think we really knew what to expect, but yeah, it's been great.
Right. No, well, that's good that you're hearing from me and you're hearing from other people. I think the reason why billboards, worked previously and they still work today is that it's a repetitive thing. So if
Yeah.
you drive by the same spot every day, you're going to see the same thing, and it sort of gets ingrained in you. So kudos to y'all for that old school billboard idea. Uh, Perhaps we should see more of that in recruitment marketing and stuff. But well, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they get a hold of you?
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will admit I am way behind on LinkedIn these days, but I do check my LinkedIn and connect. So if you have any questions or you want to follow up with me, it's a great way to find me.
And you guys are hiring. Can you give what's your career site?
Yeah, just policygenius.com/careers.
Gotcha. I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Chuck.
Thanks for listening to the Candidate Experience Podcast. You can reach out to us via our website, thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz.